The wind howled like a beast, sharp and biting as it sliced across the frozen plains. Snow blasted sideways, turning the alien world into a blinding white nightmare. Sergeant Mason Reed trudged forward, one hand over his visor, the other clutching his thermal pack close to his chest. The distress beacon from his crashed dropship was long dead, and so were his comms. He was alone now. Alone and freezing. It had been 3 days since the ambush in orbit. One moment they were flying low over the tundra, the next, plasma fire tore the wing off and everything went dark. Mason had survived barely. The others hadn't been so lucky. Now, frost crept up the sides of his visor. The HUD inside flickered as power drained. He needed shelter. Anything. Then, through the thick curtain of snow, he saw a faint light like a soft flickering flame. Mason stumbled forward, limbs aching, the cold seeping deep into his muscles. As he got closer, he realized it was a small hut, circular, made from hide, wood, and what looked like bone. Primitive, but sturdy. The smoke curling from the chimney told him it was warm inside. He hesitated. It could be a trap. But death was already hugging him close. He didn't have a choice. He knocked once. The door creaked open slowly. She stood there. Short, slender, and covered in layers of stitched fur and glowing thread. Her skin shimmered violet blue under the firelight, and her silver eyes reflected him like mirrors. 2 antennae like horns peeked from her head, curling back like delicate vines. You are not from here, she said softly, her voice strange but smooth. Cold. Just need to warm up, Mason managed, his lips nearly numb. She studied him for a moment, then stepped aside. He fell inside more than walked, collapsing near the fire pit in the center of the room. The warmth hit him like a wave, and for a few seconds he couldn't even move. His body twitched from the sudden temperature change. You were in the sky ship, she said, walking slowly around him. The one that fell in flame. Mason nodded. Weakly, yeah, that was me. She moved gracefully, like a dancer, her fur cloak slipping down her shoulder just a little. Beneath it, her body was smooth and pale, almost glowing in the firelight. She offered him a carved wooden cup. It steamed. He didn't ask what was in it. He drank. The warmth spread quickly, and color returned to his fingers. You are lucky, she said. The wild things hunt in this storm, and worse things too. He tried to sit up straighter. What worse things? She gave a soft smile but said nothing. Instead, she walked behind him, gently taking his coat from his shoulders. Her touch was light, careful, too careful. Why are you helping me? Mason asked. She didn't answer at first. She moved to the sidewall and began stirring a pot over the fire. The rich smell filled the room, something between meat and spice. He was starving, but his instincts were louder than his hunger. Something was off. My name is Sale, she said finally. You fell near my hunting grounds. I saw the fire in the sky. I followed it. I thought, maybe the god sent you. Mason raised an eyebrow. I'm no god. Just a soldier who got unlucky. She looked at him again, tilting her head. Maybe, or maybe you are the sign I waited for. He didn't like the way she said that. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't innocent either. Then he noticed something. The walls. They weren't just decorated, they were painted. Dozens of symbols, swirling patterns and pictures. Some looked like stars. Others looked like creatures, humans, fighting monsters. One of the drawings showed a figure with dark skin and short hair, much like him, holding a burning weapon. It looked exactly like a Terran plasma rifle. That's me? He asked slowly. Sale smiled. The fire warrior. The one who falls from the sky to claim the cursed one. The cursed one? Mason frowned. That would be you? She didn't answer. Instead, she moved closer, kneeling beside him. Her silver eyes locked onto his. "I have waited a long time," she whispered, "and now you are here." Mason's heart beat faster. He wasn't sure if it was the drink or her closeness or the way her voice had changed softer. Darker dot, he stood quickly, almost knocking over the cup. "Look, I appreciate the help, but I'm not some chosen warrior. I'm just trying to survive and get a signal out." Sale stood too, her expression unreadable. "You do not understand yet," she said. "But you will. You were meant to find me." "Meant to stay." Mason's muscles tensed. "Stay? No offense, but I'm leaving as soon as I can." She stepped closer. "You think the storm will let you leave?" Lightning cracked outside, shaking the hut. The fire wavered. Mason looked toward the door. Something moved past the window. Fast. Low to the ground. Sale didn't even flinch. "You are safe here," she said gently. "As long as you stay with me." Mason didn't know what chilled him more, the storm outside, or the strange warmth of the girl in front of him. Mason barely slept that night. The wind outside never stopped. The walls groaned with each gust. Somewhere in the dark, something howled, not like a wolf. It was deeper, wet-sounding, wrong, but it wasn't the storm that kept him awake. It was her. Sale moved around the hut in total silence, never using more light than the low fire. She didn't eat, didn't rest. She just watched. Sometimes from across the hut, sometimes from very close. When dawn finally came, though the sky stayed gray and storm-heavy, Mason sat up, his back aching from the hard floor. "You didn't sleep," he said, rubbing his eyes. "I don't need to," she replied calmly. Crouching near the fire, stirring that same pot, he noticed the stew hadn't reduced overnight. No steam rose from it. It wasn't food. It was a decoy. "Why pretend to cook? I need to find my ship," Mason muttered, standing. "There's a transmitter in the emergency kit. If I can dig it out, I might be able to call for pickup." Sale didn't answer at first. Her fingers traced strange symbols in the ash near the fire. They glowed faintly before vanishing. "You won't make it 10 steps, she said without turning. "There are things outside that smell human blood." Mason glanced toward the door. "I'll take the risk." She stood and faced him. "You'll die. And if you die, the bond will be broken." His brow furrowed. "What bond?" Sale stepped forward. "You drank the root fire. You sat by my fire. You shared shelter in my world that binds two souls." Mason stared. "That was tea." "No," she said firmly. "It was a ritual. And you accepted." "Lady, I didn't accept anything. I was freezing to death." Sale tilted her head. "Intentions don't change truth." Mason let out a breath and tried to stay calm. "Okay, fine. Let's pretend I did something that matters here. What does this bond actually mean?" She paused. "Then, it means you are mine now." His heartbeat quickened. "I'm what? My mate? My protector? My ... answer." She said the words slowly, deliberately, like each one weighed something invisible. "No, no," Mason said, shaking his head. "That's not happening. I'm not part of some tribal ritual marriage." Sale didn't argue. She just stared at him. "You should see the others who tried to leave after the bond," she added softly. "Their bones mark the hills." He stared. Was that a threat or a warning? "You kill people who try to leave you?" he asked sharply. "No, the world does. The bond is protection. It keeps you inside the storm's blind spot. Outside of it, the wild takes you. All of you." Mason rubbed his forehead. Okay. Slow down. Let's say I stay for now. What exactly do you want from me?" Sale stepped even closer now. He could see small bioluminescent spots on her cheeks, like faint glowing freckles. Her voice lowered. "You are strong. You are a warrior. You can help me break the curse." "What curse?" Mason asked. "You said I'm your mate. Now you're talking about a curse?" She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time with something other than mystery in her eyes. For a moment, she looked afraid. "I was not born like this," she whispered. "I was made, changed, tied to this land. I cannot leave. The fire keeps me alive, but it also traps me. Unless someone pure of flame and blood binds to me willingly." He almost laughed. "What does that even mean? You came from the sky. With fire, your soul burns brighter than any I've seen. Even your enemies call you torchmen. You carry light inside you. I need that light to survive." Mason felt the full weight of her eyes on him. Not just romantic. Something ancient. Something desperate. "And if I say no?" he asked. She turned her head slightly. "Then you will walk into the storm. And it will eat you." A long silence fell between them. Mason turned, grabbed his gear, and slung the near-empty pack over his shoulder. "Then I guess I better be fast." Sail didn't try to stop him. She simply sat back by the fire. "You'll be back before sundown," she said. "The storm always brings them at dusk." Mason opened the door and stepped into the frozen blast. His boots crunched through hard-packed snow. Wind pushed him sideways, but he kept walking. For an hour nothing happened. Then he heard a dot scraping not on the snow. Under it, he turned and something erupted behind him. White teeth, black limbs. No eyes. He ran. The storm was thick, but he could still make out the hut's light in the distance. Sail stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She was still waiting. Mason slammed the door behind him, gasping for breath. Snow clung to his body like icy claws, and blood trickled down his arm from a fresh cut. Whatever that thing was, it hadn't followed him inside, but it almost had. He collapsed near the fire again, this time not even trying to act strong. His hands trembled, and his chest heaved like he'd run a marathon through hell. Sael watched him in silence. "I told you," she said softly. "They come at dusk." He looked up, panting. "What the hell was that?" "A snowmaw," she replied. "Blind, but it hunts by vibration. Burrows under the ice. Ancient, very hungry." Mason stared at her, eyes wide. "You knew it was out there?" "Yes. And you let me go anyway." "You had to see," she said calmly. "Words mean little. Experience teaches faster." Mason clenched his jaw. "That thing nearly tore me apart, but it didn't," Sail said. "You found your way back. Now maybe you'll listen." He wanted to argue, to call her crazy, but his arm throbbed and his legs barely held him up. And deep inside, something whispered that she wasn't lying. Sail stood and reached for a small black bowl. She dipped a cloth into a glowing green liquid and knelt beside him. "Let me see the wound," she said. He hesitated, then removed the torn piece of fabric from his arm. The slash was deep but clean. Too clean. As if the thing's claws had been designed not just to rip but to leave a mark. As a warning, Sail gently dabbed the green liquid onto the cut. It burned, then cooled. The skin began closing before his eyes. He blinked. "What is that stuff?" "Root marrow. From the life trees. It heals fast, but only on those the forest accepts." He raised an eyebrow. "And if it didn't accept me?" "It would have poisoned your blood." "Great." She smiled faintly. "But it didn't. That means you were meant to be here." He stood slowly, testing his weight. The pain had already dulled. "Fine, I'll stay. For now," he muttered. "But I need to know the truth. All of it. No more riddles." Sail nodded and motioned for him to sit. She moved to the center of the hut and threw a pinch of glowing ash into the fire. The flames changed, burning blue and violet. Shadows danced up the walls, forming shapes. Like moving images. She began to speak in a voice deeper and older than before. Long ago, before the stars were silent, my people ruled this part of the world. We had fire in our blood and song in our minds, but we made a mistake. We dug too deep reach for what should not be touched. The shadow showed tall alien figures standing before a dark gate, light pouring from it like liquid. We opened a gate beneath the mountain. Something came through, not a beast, not a god, a hunger. The image shifted. The gate cracked. The world turned dark. Creatures, snow moths, and worse crawled out. My people fought. But the curse spread. To stop it, the strongest of us gave up their names and tied themselves to the land. Guardians, sentinels. Her voice dropped low. I was one of them. Mason stared. You're that old? She nodded slowly. I do not age like humans. But I am dying, slowly. The fire inside fades. And when it dies, the curse will spread again. He looked at her in silence. And you think I can stop that? You're not like the others, she said. You burn brighter. I've seen your kind before, flesh and tech, fire and fury, but none stayed. You're the first to return. He frowned. Return? She pointed to the drawing on the wall again. The one with a man holding a fire weapon? That is not just a story. That is memory. He walked to the wall and looked closer. There were small details like a badge on the figure's chest. A Terran Alliance symbol. Old, worn, almost forgotten. My grandfather fought in the first contact wars. Mason muttered. Sael tilted her head. Perhaps he did more than fight. Perhaps he left a spark behind. He turned toward her. What do you want me to do? She stood tall, the fire behind her outlining her figure like a goddess from an old dream. You must go to the gate. You must relight the seal and bind the curse once more. But this time, not alone. With me. Mason stared at her. Why not do it yourself? If I step beyond the fire ring without a bonded one beside me, I'll be consumed. He stepped back. So this whole ritual, the bond, the drink, you've been preparing me for this? Yes, she said, without apology. You may think me cruel, but I do what must be done. I do not wish to die, and I do not wish this land to fall again. Outside, the wind screamed louder, as if the world heard her words and raged in response. Mason's eyes narrowed. Then let's finish this. Asterisk. They left the safety of the hut at dawn. The snow had stopped falling, but the land remained wrapped in white silence. Ice coated the trees like glass skin. Mason walked in front, holding the makeshift spear Sail had given him, crafted from bone and lined with etched symbols. It hummed faintly in his grip, alive in some strange way. Sail walked behind him, her cloak dragging softly across the snow. Her steps left no footprints. He had 1,000 questions but said nothing. The cold bit at his exposed cheeks, but he no longer shivered. The fire-root drink she'd given him that morning pulsed in his veins like molten heat. How far is this gate? Mason asked finally, breaking the silence. Just past the spine ridge, Sail replied, her voice calm. At the place where the ice never melts. And you're sure I can seal it? No, but I believe you're the only one left who can try. They passed the remains of another hut, half buried in ice. Inside, Mason saw bones curved, narrow. Not human. Something older. Sail didn't stop. The terrain turned harsh as they climbed the icy ridge. The wind picked up again, howling down the cliff face like a living thing. Each step was a struggle, but Mason didn't slow. Near the top, he spotted something glinting in the snow. Metal. He brushed the frost away and stared. A human helmet. Cracked, frozen, the visor shattered. Someone else was here, he said. Sail said softly. Many tried, all failed. He glanced at her. Why didn't they make it? They refused the bond. Or they feared me, or they believed in logic over instinct, and I didn't? You were desperate. Desperation is the mother of truth. He wasn't sure if that was a compliment. They reached the top. Mason's breath caught. Below them, nestled in a deep basin of ice, was a structure unlike anything he'd seen. It looked like a giant claw made of obsidian and bone, half buried, glowing faintly with blue veins that pulsed like a heartbeat. The gate, the air around it shimmered. The snow didn't fall near it, just drifted aside like repelled by force. As they descended toward it, Mason felt pressure build in his skull. A low hum grew louder in his ears, vibrating through his bones. What is that? He asked. It calls, Sale said. It remembers. They reached the base of the structure. Strange symbols covered the outer stone. Sale pressed her hand against one and whispered something in her alien tongue. The symbol flared and a door melted open in the rock. Inside, the walls curved inward like the ribs of a beast. Blue light glowed beneath their feet as they walked deeper. Mason felt warmth here, but not comfort. It was the heat of something. Buried too long. At the heart of the chamber, a circular altar rose from the floor. In its center was a crack sealed with a metallic plate, a seal. The same Terran Alliance symbol from the drawings. Mason approached. His breath steamed in the air. What do I do? He asked. Sale stepped beside him, her face serious. You must cut your palm and press it to the seal. Your blood will tell the gate you're worthy. It will open. Then I will go inside with you and relight the old flame. He hesitated. And if I'm not worthy, it will know. And it will reject you. He swallowed hard. No time to doubt. Mason drew his combat knife across his palm, wincing as blood welled up. He pressed his hand flat against the plate. Nothing happened. Then the metal began to glow. The blood hissed as it soaked into the seal. The symbol lit up. Lines of light shot out, climbing the walls. The room shook. A deep sound, like a pulse from the Earth's core, echoed through the chamber. The plate split open. Sal gasped. It accepted you. A staircase revealed itself beneath the altar, spiraling downward into red light. They descended. Together, step by step, into the deep. The chamber below was vast. A pit of molten fire churned beneath a hanging stone bridge. At the far end stood a broken crystal obelisk, its tip blackened. Sale stepped forward. This is where it ends. She looked at Mason. Place your hand on the obelisk. I will guide the fire. He moved cautiously, then placed his hand on the stone. Suddenly, visions exploded in his mind. He saw a great war. Ancient alien beings locked in battle with horrors from the void. He saw humans arriving too late. He saw Sale chained to the flame, screaming as her name was taken, and her soul bound to this place. Mason's knees buckled. He was still inside the vision, but something else was there too. A voice whispered, "You do not belong here." Then the fire turned black. Mason staggered back from the obelisk, clutching his head. The whisper still echoed in his skull, low, guttural, not spoken with words but carved into his thoughts. He dropped to one knee, panting, drenched in sweat despite the cold stone beneath him. Sale rushed to his side. What did it show you? It wasn't a vision, he said through clenched teeth. It was alive. Something in there spoke to me. Sale's face turned pale. The hunger has awakened. Mason looked up at her. You never said it talked. You said it was a curse, a wound. It was. But now it's something more. It adapts, corrupts. Every warrior who touched that stone left a piece of themselves behind. And now it speaks with their voices. He stood, gripping the spear. She had given him. So what now? If I touch it again, it might take me with it. Sale stepped forward. That's why we came together. I channel your flame into the broken seal. My body is the anchor. Yours is the key." She took his hand without asking. Their fingers locked, and the markings on her skin began to glow soft gold like sunlight under ice. Mason's chest burned with a sudden warmth, not from heat, but from something deeper. The bond was never just survival, she said quietly. It was transformation. The obelisk flared, reacting to their joined presence. Then the black flame surged. A tendril of darkness burst from the pit, lashing out like a whip. Mason yanked Sail backward just in time as it struck the bridge and shattered part of the edge. Ground trembled. "We have to finish this now," Sail yelled, "before it fully wakes." Mason narrowed his eyes at the obelisk, then stepped forward again. This time, he didn't hesitate. He slammed the spear into the cracked base of the stone, driving it deep. Sail stood behind him, her hands glowing brighter, her breath forming. Glowing glyphs in the air. The bridge beneath them groaned. More tendrils rose, writhing like the limbs of a monster waking from centuries of sleep. A voice boomed inside Mason's head. "You dare bring light into my WOMB?" His nose began to bleed, and he fell to one knee, but he didn't stop. Sail's chant grew louder. The black flame shrieked. It tried to retreat, but it was too late. The obelisk burst with golden fire, driving a column of light into the pit below. The tendrils recoiled, burning, turning to ash mid-air. The entire chamber rumbled as the bridge cracked beneath their feet. "We have to go!" Sail cried. They ran back up the stairs, stone collapsing behind them. Mason turned just once to look. Bat! The obelisk was burning with golden fire, and from the center, something screamed, a sound no human throat could ever make. As they reached the upper chamber, the seal slammed shut behind them. The pulse of the gate vanished. Silence. Sael collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. "It's done," she said softly. Mason leaned on the wall beside her. "Is it dead?" She shook her head. "Not dead, but locked again. Buried beneath fire and memory." Mason looked around. "You said you were tied to this land, but you couldn't leave." She gave him a tired smile. "That was before the bond. Now, I think I can." He helped her up. Outside, the sky had cleared for the first time in days. Faint sunlight broke through the clouds, lighting the frozen ridge in a glow so pure it looked unreal. Mason looked down at his hands. The faint marks from the bond still glowed under his skin, like scars of light. "You used me," he said. "I saved you," she replied. "And in return, you saved me." He nodded slowly. "Fair trade." They started the slow climb down the mountain. As they reached the basin's edge, something caught Mason's eye movement. He drew the spear, but Sail raised a hand. From the sail, trees, small figures stepped out. More of her kind, but different. Their eyes glowed faintly. Their skin was dull, hollow. "They were bound too," Sail whispered, "but the gate's hunger was stronger than their will." The figures stared at them, then turned, vanishing into the snow without a sound. "What happens now?" Mason asked. "I don't know," she said, "but I'm no longer trapped. And neither are you." They walked in silence, side by side. As the hut came into view in the distance, Mason finally said, "So, does this mean we're still bonded?" Sail gave a sly smile. "Why? Are you planning to run again?" He smirked. "Just wondering what exactly I signed up for." She looked up at him. "Warmth, fire, a life, maybe something more if you want it." He looked away, embarrassed but smiling. The storm was gone. The gate sealed, but Mason had a strange feeling this story wasn't quite over yet. Mason woke to silence. Real silence. No wind. No groaning walls. No monstrous howls. For the first time since crashing onto this frozen planet, everything was still. Sail sat near the fire, humming a soft tune as she sorted herbs into tiny clay jars. Her horns glowed faintly with the morning light, and for a moment, Mason just watched her, wondering how someone so alien could feel. Familiar now, she looked up. You breathe heavier in sleep. But your heartbeat is steady now. I think that means I'm finally relaxed, he said, stretching with a grunt. Or maybe just too tired to panic. She smiled. The hut looked different now. Brighter. Warmer. Even the shadows seemed less menacing. You said something would change after the gate, Mason murmured, sitting up. I didn't think it'd be the world. Sail nodded. The curse is not gone, but it's wounded? That silence? That calm? It's the land healing. He walked over, joining her by the fire. What about those others? The ones in the woods? Your kind. They were once like me, she said quietly. But the hunger hollowed them out. Now that the gate is sealed, they may find themselves again. Or fade. Can they be helped? I don't know. Mason reached into his satchel, pulling out the emergency beacon from his ship's remains. The casing was cracked, but the core still blinked weakly. I've been thinking, he said. I can fix this. Might take time, but when I get a signal out, a Terran ship will come. Sail said nothing, just stared at the blinking light. You could come with me, he offered. To the outpost. To Earth, maybe. See something beyond snow and flame. She looked at him, truly looked. And what would I be there? A relic? A curiosity? He paused. No, you'd be free. She touched his wrist gently. I'm free now. They sat in silence for a while. Then a sound outside. Not the wind. Not a beast. Footsteps. Mason shot. Up, spear in hand. Sail rose too. Calm but alert. The door creaked and a shadow stepped through. Human. Tall, covered in snow gear. A long plasma rifle slung over one shoulder. He paused when he saw them, blinking in confusion. Then he pulled off his helmet. Holy hell, the man breathed. Another survivor? Mason froze. You're Terran? The man nodded. Corporal. Yallenmeyer, search and recovery. We caught your old distress beacon ping before it fully died. You've been out here alone? Sail remained perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Not alone, Mason said slowly. She saved me. Jallen's eyes narrowed at Sail. She one of the locals? She's the last of them, Mason replied. Right? Yallen muttered, stepping closer. Command's gonna want to see her. They've been dying to get live intel on this place for years. The other teams that landed here never made it. Out. Mason's body tensed. She's not a prisoner. Yallen raised an eyebrow. Didn't say she was. Just following orders. You don't understand, Mason said, stepping between them. This land, the gate, the storm, none of. It's natural. Sail's the reason it didn't swallow the whole region. She's not just intel. She's the reason we're still breathing. Yallen looked from Mason to Sail, then back again. You're bonded to her. It wasn't a question. His tone was cold, suspicious. Mason said nothing. Yallen frowned. Damn it, you've gone native. Before Mason could react, Yallen raised his wrist and tapped a comm device. Echo 7 to outpost. Mason lunged forward, knocking his arm aside. Don't. The two men wrestled, crashing into the wall. The comm fell and broke apart. Yallen shoved Mason back, eyes blazing. You're protecting an alien over your own species? I'm protecting someone who gave me life when I had nothing, Mason growled. She's not a threat. She's a guardian. Sail stepped forward now, calm but firm. If you call more soldiers, they will bring fear, weapons, fire, and this land will bleed again. Yallen wiped blood from his lip, breathing hard. Command will never believe that. Mason bent down, picking up the comm wreckage. Then they won't hear it from us. Yallen looked at him like he'd lost his Mind, you're throwing your whole career away. No, Mason said. I'm choosing what's right. Sale placed a hand on Mason's shoulder. The world is watching, even in silence. Yalan shook his head. You're both insane. He turned and walked out into the snow, vanishing into the trees. Mason stood there for a long time, the firelight flickering across his face. Sale leaned close. You chose me. He nodded. No regrets? Mason turned to her. None, but I think we're going to have company soon. She smiled. Then we'll be ready. 3 days passed. The snow no longer roared. The ice-covered plains reflected pale light like glass, and strange flowers, once buried, began to bloom in the cracks of thawing earth. Something ancient had shifted beneath the planet's skin. The land was exhaling. Mason stood outside the hut, repairing the broken edge of the roof with hide and scrap. His hands moved with practiced rhythm, but his mind wandered. Sale had been quiet since Yalan left. She watched the horizon more than she spoke. She felt it too, what was coming, and it came fast. The sky cracked with fire as dropships broke atmosphere. 3 of them. Black, military grade, with the Terran Alliance emblem painted across the hulls like thunder. Mason didn't run. He went to Sale, who was kneeling in the snow, fingertips pressed to the earth. When she opened her eyes, they shimmered with golden. Flex. They're here, she said softly. I know. What will you tell them? The truth, he answered. Or at least, the part they'll believe. The dropships landed with practiced precision, kicking up sheets of snow. Soldiers in thermal armor poured out, fanning into position. Mason recognized the formation standard approach, not aggressive, but ready for violence, from the center. Ship, a tall woman stepped forward, Captain Stripes. Her face was scarred, her voice sharp. You're Sergeant Mason Reed? Yes. You've been missing for 3 weeks. I've been surviving. She glanced at Sale. And she? She saved me, he said. We saved this land, together. The captain folded her arms. This region was marked uninhabitable due to anomalous energy. You claim you neutralized it? Mason nodded. We sealed the gate. You can send your scans. There's no more storm field. The land's stabilizing. And her? The captain asked again, nodding toward Sale. She was the key, Mason said. She anchored the seal. Without her, nothing holds. The captain eyed him. And? What exactly is your relationship with the native? We're bonded. A few soldiers exchanged glances. One even chuckled under his breath. The captain said nothing. You know how this looks, she said finally. You went native. Interfered with a classified zone. Made unverified claims. And you broke Com's protocol. I saved this world. From something your maps don't even have names for. You also assaulted a fellow soldier, Mason held her gaze. Because he was about to make a mistake that could have doomed everything. She stepped closer. So what now? You think we leave? Pretend none of this happened? No, Mason said. I think you write it down, study it, respect it, and then leave it alone. The captain turned to Sale. And you? What do you want? Sale's eyes were calm. Nothing. I was never your enemy. The wind picked up softly. The captain exhaled. Fine. We'll run scans, we'll report, and we'll probably be back. With questions. Then come with open minds, Mason said. Or don't come at all. She nodded once. You're lucky, Sergeant. We need more people like you. He smiled faintly. I'm staying here. The captain raised a brow. That's not how this works. It is now. After a long pause, she finally said, Then you'll file your own damn reports. With a sharp turn, she motioned to her troops. Pack up, we're moving. The soldiers returned to the dropships. Within minutes, the engines roared to life. and the ships lifted off, leaving only wind and silence behind. Mason and Sale stood together, watching the sky close. He looked at her. "You didn't have to stay near me. You could have disappeared into the forest." She tilted her head. "Why? Would I leave my flame?" He chuckled softly. "I keep thinking back to when we met. I thought you were just some quiet girl with glowing eyes and a warm fire. And now? Now I know," he said. "You were the storm." Sale stepped closer, placing her hand over his chest. "And you were the match I waited a lifetime to strike." Their fingers intertwined. The bond between them pulsed faintly, still alive, still strong. Together, they turned and walked back toward the hut. The land behind them slept peacefully, no longer haunted, and though Mason had once fallen from the sky, cold and alone, he had found something warmer than fire. He had found a home.